Hello there, good morning and welcome to my little arty corner of YouTube and the internet and various other little places dotted around and about. But it's November the 1st, it's about 8:30 in the morning, sun's up, it is sunny. We've had yesterday wild winds, really strong winds and rain, well, so heavy, couldn't see the other side of the valley from where I am just about. It's that bad. The noise was incredible. I love it, by the way, but sunny at the moment. Whether it remains that way for the day, I'm not entirely sure. Part of me hopes so, because it would be nice to have a good dose of sun. Anyway, 1st of November 2021, new month. Inktober is over and done with, and I'm having to think how I can keep that momentum going and that interest in developing patterns and shapes and motifs and so on that I found I enjoyed so much, because I really do like having a reference book to look at for inspiration from time to time, where I can just flip a page open at random and have a look. The problem is I've got so many books now, it's getting daft, but it's a never-ending supply of inspiration, a source of inspiration as well once I've done. So although I've got some pages left in the sketchbook I was using through Inktober, I've decided to leave them as they are and start a new book, new month. And I did spend some time last night adding colour to the pages and some stars and some other patterns in the background. That's why the paper's a bit wobbly, because it got a bit damp, but it'll be fine. So I think I've got 5 pages done, and I decided to use the stars and that's 6 stars, and well, I did change the pattern. I've got like little squares in the other one and little blobby bits in others, so it was just a case of, you know, just doing whatever. Distress inks and stencils, and I use stencils in 2 ways. The stars I put through with some extra distress ink on a makeup brush. The white spots, the stencil down, I used a baby wipe to pick the colour up, and a heat gun then to dry it so I didn't smudge it, because the baby wipe was fresh and wet and they're best when they're left to dry a little. And perhaps I ought to try drying them and just dampening them with plain water, because that would work and it'd be less environmental. Anyway, I witter on. So I'll put every information there, and I am going to decorate the front of this and the other one eventually. But new page, new tangle, and I am going to work on this in a landscape fashion. Landscape in that way? Portraits? I quite like having, it is so hard. Let's glasses on. And what I've got here is a Tombow Fudenasuki pen. It's the hard version. You can tell it's the hard one because here it's got a little green square. Don't know if you can see because the light's not on. Let me just put some extra light on, because though it's sunny, it's not reflecting over here. So there's a green square here. On the soft ones, it's pale blue. And I quite like the hard ones because I'm quite heavy-handed, so it does take some force to change the thickness of the line you get. The nibs on these are flexible, and these pens have the distinction of being the only kind of fine line drawing pen, or, you know, they're for writing, drawing, whatever, but the only pen of its kind, you know, this kind of thing without a steel nib they've actually managed to run out of ink with, because most of them I've destroyed the point before I get to them. Now the question is, what do I do? Do I do a tangle pattern? It's possible. Or do I take one of my favourite patterns? And I think today I'm going to start with one of my favourite patterns. I did use this one in a I'll turn it this way because you know you can, in a page in my big sketchbook, but it's always nice to revisit, and I'm sure I've used some of the Zentangle kinds of ideas, how patterns are drawn or I will do. This one starts with 3 sort of like, I suppose, kidney bean kinds of shapes, kidney kinds of shapes. And I am going to outline them, or in Zentangle terms, aura them. Like this. And I'm then going to continue auraing them. It's funny how aura has become a verb. But I'm going to keep doing them in the same order so that there's I suppose a consistency in where the lines overlap, which is a bit like, is it Arukas? Where you get this overlapping of line. And I'm going to finish that one there because I could keep going and going, and I am going to add some thickness of line. This is why I love these Tombow pens so much. I've bought others of similar brands to try, and some they're just too soft for me to handle because I am pretty heavy-handed. But these ones are great because you can see you can get quite a really fine line with them, and also a thicker line just with pressure, which means they do take a bit of practice with, but I use them on a fairly regular basis, so because I love them so much. Not for every piece of drawing. In many ways they'll give a very woodcut or lino cut kind of feel to my drawings, because the lines become so variable in width, as in terms of deliberately variable rather than with a brush pen. I'd actually find it, a proper brush, I'd find it much harder to control the variability of lines. Just pop some thickness there, some there, because that makes sense to me. So that's my basic motif. How can I alter this? Well, let's start by drawing some of these shapes again. Just take one of them, I think, and use that. In my artwork, I'll often use odd numbers of things, so that's quite interesting already. So what I'll do as well, I will pop a thicker line there. Oh, I'm thinking this one, if it goes a bit wonky, it doesn't matter, it just means that everything gets super thick, which is basically what I'm heading for here, like that. And some there. If I have trouble getting these to smoothly follow, it is early in the morning, then I'll dig out a fine line pen. I've got a selection there with me ready. So that's quite interesting, and I said I've got a selection. I have. I'll stick to black. But this is a 01. Sakura Pigma. I'm just going to put a texture in here. As I'm drawing this, I'm realising I could have curved these lines to give a sense of dimension, so I'll do that. I'll redraw this and do it in a different way to show you what I mean. I may do it 2 times, but that instantly adds, some interest. Cross hatching like this, and I like the broken one. You can do it very perfectly, you can do it very messily. I like to break the lines and have these more open spaces. So they're not going to be identical in terms of shape or size, but I do want to get this line there. thinner one there. And that there is why I like these, because learning how to adjust the thickness of line gives a lovely gentle transition from one to the next. It does. That's a very different kind of shape, but that's fine. I can live with that. So another way of doing this is, if I wanted this to appear there's something, I suppose, poking out. These are called contour lines in art, and you use these to suggest the way that an object is curving, and the density of them and thickness of them can be used to add the suggestion of where everything's darker and lighter. So for this one I'm going this way round. If I'd used a Tombow pen, I wouldn't have got a line as fine as this, but it would have been a lot easier to make the line thicker as it goes down here and here. That's where dip pens come in, but I am not a fan of dip pens. Me and dip pens have lots of accidents and splotches and splashes and inky fingers and putting my hand in wet ink that hasn't quite dried. So I could leave that one like that. Used to do an awful lot of this. And you can actually leave a big gap in the middle to give the illusion of a highlight or suggestion of a highlight. The lines don't have to all be straight. Mine are getting wobbly because my page is wobbly. It's not flat. Sticking up a bit. And of course, as you space them further apart or closer together, the ink density becomes increased, which means you get areas that look like they are more in shadow than others. And I can also not just thicken the lines, but I can add some extra lines around areas where I really want shadow. And I've created that kind of feeling of shadow with the thicker line, but there's this density there. So there's that one. So let's have a look at the next. Slightly different direction, and I'll have that one with the it's a bit different. But another way is, instead of this cross hatching being perfect squares, is you can do that with these. Going quiet because I'm concentrating what I'm doing. By breaking the lines and adding those dots, it means you can fade the lines out as well. So there's that. I am going to turn my book, and then I'm going to do lines going this way. So I'm getting cross hatching here, but I'm trying to leave bigger and bigger gaps between the lines as I get to the lighter area. And then I want to get them to come closer together, to get close to that dark edge. And again, I need some extra lines here. So, and if I'd done the lines in the opposite direction, it would have appeared to do. I'll show you. Hopefully I can get the illusion to work, because that looks like it's bending up from, it looks like it's sticking upwards. So I'm not sure if I'll manage to do this, but we can try. So let me have a look. So instead of going up, I want it to go downwards. So I don't know if this will work actually. This is where shadow or shading comes in, I think. Let's put some dots around that middle. Which way would this go if I wanted it to go inwards? It wouldn't go up, would it? It would go... almost like I'd want... I'm not sure this is going to work. But as this is what sketchbooks are for. To try things out in. Not sure that works. Does it? May very well do, because I'm getting it darker towards the middle and lighter towards the edge. And I haven't got any white gel pen out. I'm not going to go Fertling for it, because that's not the purpose of it. But this, you know, I've started with this, which is something I've used in art in the past. I really like those shapes, and have developed these different ways, exactly one of these, but with different ways of shading in them, just to see what will happen and to try things out. And I could lose myself in doing this for ages. In stippling, we'll do that. I'll do that one quickly-ish. Just use a very, oh, not a kidney bean shape or kidney shape today. Just a shape, circle shape. Where I want it to be darkest, that's where I put the closest together little dots. And this is about really getting a smooth kind of transition to the density of dots. Can use different size dots, but these are such small little drawings that, and of course you can't see what my hand's doing, my pen's doing. I'm just adding these little dots, and really close together, and lots of them. They can even overlap where you want it darkest, and you leave open areas where you want the highlights. And I find that if I leave a very harsh kind of distinct line, it doesn't look as natural. And if this was doming up, these edges would be in shadow. Of course, once this is done, and it reminds me of lithographs or you know, things like that. Translucent colour like watercolour or markers. Not so much coloured pencils, but things like ink tints, which you can, and water soluble coloured pencils, where you can make a wash with them. And the graphic tints may sort of work, though they do have a semi-opaqueness when they've been used as a wash. The patterns, the lines will show through, and so you can enhance them. And depending on the colours you use, I've got a particular fondness these days for rather vintage colours. They tend to look vintage and almost old-fashioned, but the drawing may be quite modern and up to date. So that's where I'm going to leave it today, 20 minutes, and the video and everything can process while I'm getting on with other stuff. So I'll leave this, and maybe tomorrow I'll share some time again. I have no idea what this pattern is called. It's just a shape. It's like, this is what I do. I use shapes and motifs which often have no name. They bear a passing resemblance to things in the real world, although inspiration can come from them. I have no idea where the inspiration for this came from, by the way. I may have been looking at botanical illustrations, or because it's got a botanical feel about it, but it could equally have been geology. It could have been something straight out of my head. I have no idea, except that what you've got stored in your head often comes from things you've seen somewhere, and what is my theory, and often what shapes I like and patterns I've seen come out in their own way in their own time, and sometimes just instinctively or intuitively. You know, I was going to start with a tangle pattern today, but I changed my mind when I opened the page, and I thought, no, I'd like to start with something that's distinctly mine today, and something simple that people could do, because not all of my stuff is, well, it is simple when it's broken down into steps. It just looks complex when everything is put together, and that's a whole different story. But thank you for joining me. I hope this inspires you. I know, though, there's people have left comments saying how much they enjoyed this and have been drawing along. I hope you'll give this one a go at drawing along with me, and perhaps see how you can use it in your drawing practice, Zentangle practice in some way. Who knows? It's not like I could sprinkle it around the place, but it's much more of an arty project, and I forgot where my hand was. I'm going to have to learn about that, or find a way of setting the camera up differently so you can actually see the pen rather than just my hand over things, if that's the case. But I'll work it. It's not an impossibility. So please take care, look after yourselves, and find time to be creative. Bye-bye for now.